Well, good morning, church family. Thank you so much for being a part of this online Bible study time. We're so thankful you're out there, so thankful that you joined us for this time. Whether you're watching this live or later on, thank you for being a part of this. Well, this is a very special time, and I'll get to that here in just a moment. Before I do, though, if you haven't checked in, go ahead and do so. You can text the keyword check to 386 400 9991. Just type that word check into your text message app, and you can text that to the church. And that just lets us know that you are here this morning. Well, like I said, this is a special Sunday. We have one of our most tenured teachers sharing with us this morning. We've been trying to get her to have the opportunity to teach for a while, but many of you know that she has been sick and recovering from all this in the last couple months. So Mary Waller, who is just an incredible person, is going to share with us what God has laid on her heart for us all to hear. So Mary, thank you so much. And just so you know, Mary's doing well. I had the opportunity to go to her house this week and videotape this time. And so, Mary, thank you again for sharing. Thank you, all of you, for being a part of this time. And I look forward to seeing how God uses Mary to impact us all. Thank you so much for being out there. And Mary, thank you for sharing.
Hello, everybody. I wish I could see you like you're seeing me. I'd like for you to see Brad, who's taking my picture. Can you do that?
I can.
There he is. He's and I'd like for you to see my great-granddaughter, who's my caretaker. Her name is Brittany, and she's from Alabama. And she's a CNN, so she's well qualified. She knows how to take care of me. And she's a real blessing. This morning, I wanted to tell you two stories. One is about me, and the other one is about a man named the prodigal son. I have some scriptures here. If you will get your Bible out, get a marker, and mark these in your Bible because they're important scriptures. And I'd like for you to have them available when you need them. They've served me well over the years, so I know they'll be good for you too. I was born in a little town called Branford on the Swanee River up in North Florida in 1927. Go figure, how old am I? 93. I have lived 42,507 days, and God's got them numbered, and I know that. And whenever He's ready and my number's up, I'm ready to go and be with Him. In Branford, we had a little spring that ran into the river. When we got through working, we'd go down with a bar of soap and some shampoo and shampoo our hair and take a bath in that 70-degree water, and the water would flow out to the Swanee River and out to the Gulf of Mexico, and then all over the world. That kind of opened a world up to me. You see, when you're born, all you think about is, ooh, I'm wet. Dry me. I'm a mess. Clean me up. I'm hungry. Feed me. Feed me. And then you grow, and you grow, and you grow, and you do that spiritually. You learn to crawl. You learn to walk. You learn to feed yourself. Get a drink of water for yourself. You finally learn to keep yourself clean. You can take your own bath and do whatever you need to do. Well, I grew up there in this little town, and when I was 12, I started singing in a choir. And in January, I quit singing in the choir because I got sick. How many years is that? 81 years. I sang in a choir. And I learned to play a clarinet a little bit, learned to play Piano a little bit. I'm not gifted like our musician at church, Carlos, and Jenny on the organ, and Kim on the piano, and so many wonderful soloists. I thought I was going to go away and study music. At FSCW, that was Florida State College for Women. I wasn't qualified. I didn't know enough music. So somebody said, there are three of us going into nurses training. You want to go? And I said, sure, not knowing what I was in for. We spent 1,096 days in nurses training. It was like basic in the Army. They controlled our every movement. And believe me, when that 1,096 days was up, we were nurses. We could handle anything. I wasn't afraid. My first job was a head nurse, a night nurse in a little town called Live Oak up in North Florida. And there I was in charge of the emergency room in addition to being night nurse. I married a man named Joe Carlton, good-looking guy, in 1949. And we moved to Jacksonville, and we had a little daughter named Kathy. A lot of you will know Kathy and her husband, Bob. In 1956, Kathy was 2 years old, and I was 30. Joe was 32. And I waked up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and a man had his hand over my mouth. And I started to fight him off. I thought, Joe, what are you doing? And I looked, and a man was in the room with a sledgehammer in his hand, and he had crushed in the head of my husband, Joe. And I started screaming. The man ran. We were both from small towns. We'd never locked a door in our life. And then Kathy came into the room. She said, Mama, what's the matter with Papa? And I came to out of my panic, and I knew I had to take care of her. I picked up the phone, started to call, and you didn't have to dial in those days. The operator answered, and I said, please come, somebody killed my husband. And in 7 minutes they were there. In 11 minutes they had caught the guy. They followed him through the bushes and found the sledgehammer where he had dropped it. Well, my mother died. My brother died, all within a 2-year period. I felt like I was following a hearse everywhere I went. All of them from up in North Florida. We took them home. I decided that I was going to go back to school because I had 3 brothers. They all had a college degree. None of it compared to 1,096 days of nurses training. But I wanted a college degree too, so Stetson being right here in town, I decided to go to Stetson. I couldn't get a nursing degree, so what I got was a Bachelor of Science in Biology degree. It took me 3 more years, but I made it. One thing I've got is determination, if nothing else. So now, here I am qualified with an RN and a BS. So I worked emergency room and all, and one of the LPNs said, Ms. Carlton, we never have had any training. We've all been grandfathered in, and we're licensed, and we know what we're doing, we know how to do it, but we don't know why. Would you teach us? So I went to the community college and asked them about teaching the LPNs, and they agreed readily. And so I started a new course, and licensed practical nursing. Some of the best students I ever had. They were so delighted to know why they did something and how the best way to do it was. And then they said, would you like to teach a home nursing course? And I said, sure. So I started a new course. And then they said, how about CNAs, Certified Nursing Assistant? So I started a new course. And then after years of teaching, I walked into my boss's office one day, and they had an orange book there that said, Emergency Medical Technicians. And I said, what is that? And he said, it's a new course. The government says we have to teach it. You want to teach it? So I started my 5th new course at the community college. And I taught there for 20 years. It was before technology. I had to carry a 40-pound camera with me wherever I went to show to my classes. I took classes in how to teach now. And I called one of my assistant professors and I said, how do you write a lesson plan? And she says, I don't know, I never had one. So I had to learn to make lesson plans and learn about teaching goals, what I wanted my student to know, and how to go about doing it. So it was a rewarding career for 20 years. And then it was a little stressful, and my husband said, you can quit if you want to, I'll feed you. That was my second husband. His name was Fred Waller. He was a construction man, a contractor. One day we were riding toward Orlando, and I looked over and saw a big fiberglass dish. And I said, what is that? And he says, a swimming pool. I said, stop. When I was a kid, I always wanted a pool so bad, that because the springs was so cold. And so he stopped and investigated it. He started to build swimming pools. And he and I ran a business and built 1,500 swimming pools. He was the only contractor that did that at that time. So we did that for many years. Then we had a little girl named Connie, and she and Kathy were 4 years apart. But Connie was quiet, and Kathy was a go-getter. And when she was a baby, she cried if I went out to hang up the clothes. And I said, I'm never going to have another baby unless I have a dryer. So when Connie came along, I could give her a spool and she'd play with it for an hour. Boy, kids are different, aren't they? Did you know that I believe one of the things I've learned is everybody has problems. And our pastor recently has been emphasizing the fact that we all have things we don't want people to know. Everybody's sinned, isn't it what it says in the Bible? For all have sinned. Everybody, Brad, Brittany, me, and you. I don't know what your problem is, but it could be pornography. It could be dirty books. It could be focusing on the wrong thing. You may be focusing on dog races, or maybe fishing. I had some people living with me in the winter for 24 years, and he was a golfer. He golfed 3 or 4 days. It takes a day to golf. That was his focus in life. Our pastor says that we should focus on Jesus. And that's what I've tried to do with my life. Well, after I went to trial with the man who killed my husband, he sat like social distancing about 10 feet away from me. And I looked at him and I thought, he needs Jesus. And as I worked in the emergency room, I saw more and more people who needed Jesus. They came in terrible shape. They had a very limited vocabulary. They spoke the same curse words over and over. They had holes in their pants. Now you pay a big price for that. They had holy breeches and worn out shoes. And we had one man that slept in the tombs over in Daytona at night, and he came in with stinky, stinky feet. And I had my students clean him up. And when he got ready to go, he put back on his same stinky socks and shoes and the same stinky clothes. We had bathed him and got him clean and gave him vitamins, and he was dehydrated, gave him medicine. And he went back on the street. And God started to speak to me, not audibly, you understand, but he said, "Mary, you need to go to jail." Well, I read the scripture, Matthew, in the 25th chapter of Matthew, and Jesus is talking, and he says, "I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink. And I was naked and you clothed me. And I was sick and you visited me. And I was in prison and you visited me. And I was a stranger and you took me in." And I had pretty well covered most of that. But the part about visiting the jail I hadn't done. And nobody in our church was doing that. And I said, "Well, God will do that someday, but I'm busy right now. I'm raising kids and I'm teaching and I'm working and taking care of my husband and helping him with his business." And so 15 years later, God was still saying, "You need to go to jail." So I found a jail ministry from First Baptist, and there were two ladies had been going 2 years. And I thought, "Oh, I'll never go 2 years. That's too long." And so I asked them if I could go, and they said, "Sure, come on, see if you like it." So I went the first time, and they clanged the door behind me, and I was in a room with people I had never associated with. They were prostitutes and thieves. Some of them were murderers. And most of them were young, and they were on dope. And that was new back then. And I felt so overwhelmed. On the way home, I said, Mary Brothers had been a missionary to Africa for 25 years. What a mentor. And Betty Hutchings, she taught school year at Deland High School, so some of you may remember her. She said, Mary says to me, "Mary, you have to look at these women like God looks at them. The possibilities. He's got a plan for their life. He doesn't mean for them to be in jail all their life." So slowly, I began to do that. Guess what? I learned to love them. I started in 1978. See if you can figure that one out. I quit in January. I'd been asking God, when do I need to quit teaching Sunday school? I've been teaching it since I was 22. I've been singing in the choir since I was 12. I've been going to jail for 43 years. And I got sick, and God told me, "Okay, you can quit now." I had taught 45 women, and now I had 5. Those were all old. Some of them have listened to me for all those years. They've been faithful. And so in January, I got sick and could hardly walk. And my daughter says, Connie says, "Mother, you need to go to the emergency room." So I went. Guess what? I had an embolism and I had congestive heart failure. And God had said, "Okay, your time is up." So they put me in the hospital, and I'm not a real good patient because I taught nurses and I know how it should be done. They practice medicine by what's called protocols now, not patients. They never did a history and physical on me the whole time. They never gave me a bath. They never offered to brush my teeth or wash my face in 5 days. So I was glad to get out of there and come home, but I was terribly weak. And one day, they were putting a new roof on my house, although I didn't need one. The insurance company said I had to have one. So I said, I'll step out here and look at that new $25,000 roof. So I stepped out the door, fell, hit my head on a concrete post, and fractured my left femur. That's the longest bone in your body, and it was in two and twisted up into my hip. And I lay there screaming and screaming. And I had this thing around my neck, and I pushed it. The roofers came down, and they didn't speak English, so I had trouble telling them, don't move me, don't move me, don't move me. So the EMTs and paramedics came and gave me morphine and moved me to the hospital. By the time I got there, I had had 5 doses of morphine. The doctor who put me back together, I don't remember ever seeing him. He said he spent 2.5 hours screwing it back together using glue and a rod and all kinds of things. And then after 2 days, I went to rehab. This is my 3rd institution. They nurse by protocols. I was not a happy camper. So I says to my daughters, well, you see, I couldn't see them really. I had to talk to them on the phone because here, along with all the other troubles, I have CV virus 19, and I can't see my family. I'm very lonely. I'm isolated is what I am. I don't have any more hugs at church. I don't have any more church family. They can't come to see me. So I said to my daughters on the phone, I'm going home. I don't like it here. They hurt me too bad. 2 days after surgery, they made me get up and stand on that leg, and they'd already told me not to put weight on it for 12 weeks. And I knew I was going to fall again. So I came home, and you should see what they have set up for me here. Brad's shaking his head, nodding his head. They had a hospice bed, and they had me by the window so I could look out and see the birds flying. One of them built a nest in a geranium. I got to see God at work. I got to see my swimming pool and the flowers that I had planted. And they had me set up with my books on one side, my telephone, my TV, my computer, and a kitchen and a bathroom right at hand. But the best part was that Brittany you just saw. She's my great-granddaughter. She lives in Alabama and she needed a job. They went and got her, brought her from Alabama, and she takes care of me every day. Whatever I need, Brittany's here to take care of me. What a wonderful blessing God has provided for me. In the hospital, when the first time before the virus, I had 92 visitors from church, and I had over 100 cards and letters. God's blessed me with so many good friends, so many good preachers. How many years was it I taught? 70, 60 something. And did you know that if you teach, you learn a lot more about the Bible than you do if you don't teach, because you got to know what you're talking about. So here I sit, passing day to day. Well, I want you to know that I believe that everybody has problems. Brad's nodding his head. He's got problems. I don't even know what they are, but I know he's got them. If I look in the car next to me, I see somebody that's got problems. If I look at Brittany, she's got problems. She needed a job, and she came to help me. All kinds of friends. Wilma is sick again, Wilma Martin. And I've had 48 people who are close to me die in the last year because I'm 93 and they're all dying. I read somewhere recently that out of 100 people born in 1927, there are only 7 of us still alive. Has God been good to me? Yes, He has. Well, I want to tell you a story out of the Bible. This is one I teach at the jail. And we don't have the same customers all the time that come and go. Some of them get 2 weeks and some get 11 months and 29 days. If they get more than that, they go off to state prison. And so I know a few of them that have listened to our message over the years. One of the greatest blessings that we, the volunteers, have is when somebody sees us in a restaurant where they're a waitress and says, Mary, sometimes they call me Sister Mary, say, Sister Mary, I'm so thankful you came. I listened to what you had to say. Or maybe I didn't listen, but somebody else came along and said it again. Finally, I listened. And now I'm out of jail. I have my husband back. I got my kids back. That's one of the things that grieves the prisoner the most is they have, I say, there's 40 in the room, and I say, how many kids you got? And they say 3, 2, 120 kids with no mothers. Think about it. This is one of the neediest populations in our society today, is the prisoners. So this lesson I'm going to tell you about is one I teach over and over because it's applicable to the prisoners. It's from Matthew. No, it's not. It's from Luke 15:11. And it says, Jesus is talking to his apostles when he was here on earth, and he says, I was hungry when you fed me. And they said, when did you go to jail? And he said, if you visited the least of these 40 women, you visited me. So I knew I was in the right place. I knew I'd done what God wanted me to do. And our church didn't have a church ministry, so I was glad I was there. Well, I got to where I liked it, you know. I look forward. Every Monday we went for years and years and years. And this lesson applies to them. It says, that this scripture's in Luke. It says, and in that country there was a man who had 2 sons. And one of them came to his daddy. He says, Dad, I got a problem. I want to do what I want to do now. I don't want to do what you told me to do. Give me my money. His daddy didn't want to do it. He had a problem. But he decided to do it anyway, what a lot of parents do. He gave him his part of his inheritance. And it says he went away to a far country. And there he wasted all his inheritance in riotous living. And he ran out of money. Guess what went with his money? His friends. No more friends. These women in the jail, when they leave home, they tell their parents, I don't want to do what you want me to do anymore. Give me what you're going to give me, I'm leaving. And they disappear from their parents' house. Their parents have a big problem. They've lost their daughter. And then somebody says, here, try this, you'll like it. They've already tried smoke, and They've tried drinking beer. They've tried drinking alcohol. Some of them got to be alcoholics. And then they take one dose of whatever. I'm trying to think of some of those. Crack cocaine. Very addictive. Fentanyl was a recent one. One dose and you're an addict. And so they become addicts. And getting out of that hole, people, is one of the hardest things you could ever do. It's hard enough to quit smoking. It's even harder if you're an alcoholic. Perry Davis, who's from our church, spent 4 years in federal prison, and I heard Perry say one day, you can go to AA and they can help you a little bit, but what they do is sit around and drink coffee and talk about all the bad things they've done. Guess what they do in jail? They talk about all the bad things they've done and how they learned to do it, and they have absolutely nothing to do except that. We can't take them a jigsaw puzzle. We can't take them books to read or makeup to play with or combs to do their hair with. They have nothing to do. It's a breeding ground for criminals, and when they get out, AAs, they say, find a new friend, find a new playground. They go right back to Beach Street on Daytona, and somebody says, here, try this, you'll like it. They're hooked all over again. It's a sad, sad story. Once in a while, they find Jesus in there. That's because we go. And we talk to them and tell them about the prodigal son, how he was feeding the pigs one day because he was hungry, and he was willing to eat what the pigs ate. And they know that they're in the depths. I have a little poem I like to say to them. One night in bleak December, the best I can remember, the moon was all lit up, and so was I. As I lay there in the gutter, a little pig came and lay down by my side. I heard a lady mutter. She said, you can tell who drinks the booze by companions they choose. And the little pig got up and walked away. Sometimes that speaks to him. Sometimes the prodigal son speaks to him. Sometimes they hear the voice of God talking to them. And it says, go home. Your father's hired servants are eating well. They've got clothes to wear. And he says to himself, I'll go home to my father and I'll say, Father, I have sinned against you. Your hired servants are in better shape than I am. I need you. I need to come home. I'm sorry for what I did. I should never have done that. So he went home. His shoes are all worn out. His clothes are all worn. And he hadn't had anything to eat in days. And guess what? His father's waiting on him. Think about it. His arms are like this. He's saying, come home. I want you back. I want you to celebrate because you come home. That's the way I feel. God's waiting for me in heaven when he's ready. I'm ready to go. I'm not afraid anymore. I know where I'm going. I know who's going to be waiting for me there. My first husband, my second husband, my 3 brothers, my mother and father, and a lot more people. A lot more people from this church who know where they're going. I have some verses up here I'd like to go over briefly with you. And if you'll look up there, you might want to write them down because they're important. You know, in the book of James, James was the brother, half-brother of Jesus. The second verse. He said, "Brethren, count it all joy when you have troubles, because God's making you stronger, and you can help other people. And the troubles I have with cancer twice, 3 times, a bad knee, I'm able to help people. If they have a mastectomy, I can say, I've been through that. I know what you're going through. God provided that. You know what else He provided? Nurses training. I didn't even plan that. But I've been able to help people over the years." In the book of Isaiah, the 26th chapter, you see it written up here. Mark it in your Bible, if you will. If you know somebody that's going for radiation, that's a painful process. Doesn't hurt, it just makes you so worn out and feel like you're worth nothing. And so, referring to that verse, it says, I'm the light from heaven and I'll shine down on you and heal you. And they can use that when they go in. Everybody leaves the room, puts down the doors. You can read that verse to yourself or you can memorize it. Another one says, Philippians 4, 6, and 7. Yeah, Brad's shaking his head and says, don't worry about anything. Leave it up to God. And it says, it says, don't forget to thank Him for His answers. The choir used to sing, don't worry about anything. Just pray about everything. Tell God your needs and don't forget to thank Him for His answers. Sometimes gratitude goes a long way, and that's true always through your life. You need to thank people for what they've done. It makes their day. The other one I've written down is what Jesus said for us to do after He went back to heaven. I told you one of them from Matthew 25. He said, if you're hungry, feed. If you see somebody that's hungry, feed them. Okay, get with it, you all. You see somebody that's hungry. I carry food in my car all the time. If I see somebody that's begging, I hand them some food out the window. I think that's better than having the money, because many of them will go straight to the liquor store with the money. What else He told us to do? Just before He left, He told His apostles, go ye therefore and teach whatever I've taught you, and baptize them, preach to them, tell them about Jesus. That's what we do at jail. What a privilege to be able to do that, because He told us to. In Micah 6:8, I had my Sunday school class memorize these verses. Micah's speaking for God, and he says, oh man, what does God require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God? Now, in your life, if you're focusing on your problem, or you're focusing on dope, or you're focusing on alcohol or golf or fishing, or you need to change your focus. Pastor's been telling us that lately. Focus on Jesus. That's what we're here for. That's our job, is to tell people about Jesus. Now, another important, listen to this. 2 Corinthians 4 tells you the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian. It says, even though you're traumatized with it, you're not crushed, because you know your Maker. You know who you belong to. You know where you're going. You have hope and you have a promise. Well, excuse me. I think God led me to be an RN. I've used that all through my life. He led me to the emergency room. He led me to jail. I want you to concentrate on your focus, if you will. Focus on Jesus and what he came to do. He came to save us. He died on the cross so that we can go to heaven. And you get to be 96 years old, 42,470 days. You know you've been on the right track, the narrow path instead of the wide path. Let's say a little prayer. Father, please get the message that I want to convey into the hearts of the people who are living. Please bless them and keep them safe from the virus. And every day help us to be more like you. In Jesus' name I pray. Thank you for listening to me.
Mary, I just want to say thank you. You are such an inspiration, and we really appreciate your ministry here at Stetson Baptist Church, the things that you've accomplished, the things that have yet to be done through you. And so, Mary, thank you so much for your commitment to Christ and the example that you lead for us all. We really, really appreciate you. Church, we have some things coming up the next couple of weeks. Earlier this week, we had an opportunity to hear from our senior pastor, Dan Glenn, about what is coming on September 13th for our church. And so rather than me just saying it all, I've taken what Dan has shared with us and I've condensed it down so y'all can all hear what he has to say about what's coming up in a couple of weeks. After that, in a couple minutes, we're going to start our time of online worship. And so look forward to seeing how God uses this Sunday service to bring him glory. Thank you so much for being out there. God bless, and we'll see you next week.
I wanted to come to you today, though, and share with you a little bit about gathering as a church. And so during this time, during this season of COVID-19, there has been a lot of gathering in different ways. We're still gathering. As we gather online, as many of you with your small groups have gathered, whether it be in locations where you've been able to gather live or gathering in digital ways, and I know that many of you have continued to do that. We're going to be taking a step in September. As a matter of fact, on September the 13th, that's the Sunday after Labor Day, we're going to be starting what we're calling our fall regathering plan. What's that going to look like? Well, we're going to give you details as we continue to move forward over these next several weeks. But I want you to know that on that day, we are going to be restarting or regathering some of our in-person ministries that have been gathering in different ways through this time. For instance, on September 13th, Sunday morning, we're going to have a children's church through grade 4. We're going to have preschool programming for birth through VPK. We're going to give some opportunities for some small groups to meet on campus. We'll still have one service at 10:30, and then also on Sunday, September 13th, we're going to have what our student ministry is calling Sunday Night Live. And so in the evening, our student ministry will be gathering together. And we certainly realize that there are some members of our church that are specifically susceptible to COVID-19 and are kind of in that high risk category. And so if that is you, or if you just feel uncomfortable, I don't want you to feel bad at all about continuing to worship with us online or at home. That is still going to be a very valid and very intentional way that we will be delivering worship experiences. And I'm just so thankful that we have that technology and that ability to do that. But we do anticipate that as children and students are gathering back in schools, and as life is kind of getting back into a sense of a new normal, we do anticipate that many of you are ready to continue to come back and be a part of the church. And so we want to encourage you to mark that September 13th date on your calendar. Well, good morning and welcome.